Hey guys, Andy here. Just a quick review of what we're going to do on Monday. Answer your questions about codecs, blah, blah, blah. On Blackboard, I have some notes up. I have formats and taxonomy, moving images for photo, those notes. Codec notes for you guys, and then what I do here today, and then any other stuff which is on Blackboard, any notes you took. What might be on the midterm test, including some questions about Premiere, things like what's an overwrite edit as opposed to an insert edit, stuff like that. Short answer, multiple choice, true, false, if I didn't already say that. That's about it. We'll start right away just by answering your questions about codecs. Are codecs used for the internet and movies as well? Yeah, codecs are used all the time. If we acquired images on set on a movie as raw images, we can do that, and it's sometimes done. But once we've acquired all those images, which are raw, 24 frames per second worth, so that's 24 photos per second, we've got to encode them, compress them so that we can edit, store, transmit, and finally show on a big screen in the movies. So we start compressing images right away, even if we capture them in a raw format. But capturing them raw is fairly only on very high-end movies. And it's sort of not used too much in the industry. Next question, 422 video. 422 video just means that we are taking only 50% of the chroma information across with us. So RGB comes into the camera. We do a chroma subsampling, which is to split luma, which is black and white information, from color information. So we take RGB and we turn it into YCB CR. And once we split those components up, the 422, each number represents the amount of stuff in the picture. So with 422, I hate when my screen goes black sometimes when I stand up. Anyway, with 422, what happens is that 4 represents 100% luma information. So in each pixel we've got luma, 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 luma. And then 2, this represents 50% of the red, 50% of the green color difference. Won't worry about the physics here. But suffice to say, that means that we have half the chroma information in the pixels. So what we'll do is we'll put green, red, skip 1, green, red. So we've got 2 pixels with just luma information, 2 pixels with full information, and that's what 422 is. Some cameras also do 411, where we only have 25% of the information, and it's done by skipping lines, and we won't go into that right now because it's too complicated. Next question. I don't understand the different video types very well, such as MP4, AVI, and move. Those are container formats. Containers are, to use a visual metaphor, like the clothes that you put on the actual stream of video. And the clothes, depending on what clothes you wear, you can get into different parties. So in a sense, Apple made its own clothes for its video called .move. It's a container format. And with those clothes comes, you can package audio, so you can carry stuff in your pocket, so to speak, metadata, streaming information, whether it should be streamed at 24 frames a second, whether it should stop here, go there. So there's all sorts of information contained in this container, or the wrapping or the clothing that's on these videos. So these are just different container formats, and most software like QuickTime, etc., can play all of them, so we don't have to worry about them too much. They'll accept any clothes that the video comes in with. What does AVI stand for? I have to look that up. Audio Video Interleaved. It's a Microsoft container. I have a pretty good grasp of everything we covered except IP and B frames. IP and B frames. Here we go. How much time do we have? We're at 4 minutes. I'm going to do the IP and B frames. We're only going to concern ourselves with I frames and P frames, because B frames are just a hybrid of P. We're not going to worry about it. We're just going to keep it with I and P. I frames are anchor frames. They're full pictures in a string of pictures along a timeline. So 24 frames per second, Dwayne, and I'll show you him right here. This is Dwayne, 24 frames a second. Each frame is a full picture, okay, in this instance. And here we go. And if we play it really fast, we get movement. So that's 24 frames per second. Now what we're doing is we're saying, you know what? Let me get my face back up here. You know what? To save Dwayne, each frame as a full JPEG takes too much storage, takes too much bandwidth. So let's not save every single frame with all of its information. Let's just save every 12th frame. And every 12th frame we'll call a keyframe or an iframe or an anchor frame. And each 12th frame will be like a JPEG. It will exist. And then the other frames in between we'll call P frames. And P frames will never exist and be printable, so to speak. They won't ever be there. Instead, what they'll be is they'll be there just for a moment, and they'll be stored as math. So what they'll do is, P frames stand for predictive frames, and what they'll do is they'll look back to the iframe and understand what differences between themselves and the iframe before them are, and then reconstitute the new frame just for an instant, and then it's gone. So P frames are just math, which represent differences between successive frames. So let me show you here quickly. So this is Mr. Dwayne with all iframes or keyframes. And then this is a codec where we've said it's H.264, and we said that every 12 frames we're going to have a keyframe. So here's a keyframe, which is a full JPEG, and then here's a P frame. And the P frame is just math. This doesn't exist really. It only exists in the timeline when you play out the video. Oh, there's a frame there. So whenever I hit an iframe, the iframe actually has been stored in its entirety and can be printed out, can be saved like this. These P frames are all math though. Get back to my face. Hopefully that sort of answers your question. Suffice to say, good codecs will save every single frame like a JPEG. So in 24 frames per second, you'll have 24 little pictures playing out. H.264 that your camera uses does not save every frame as a JPEG. It saves, I don't know exactly how often it keyframes, but it might keyframe every 24 frames, 4812, I'm not sure. The point is not saving every frame. What it's doing is it's saving every 12 frames and then the differences between frames. And it's doing that with math. That's pretty much it. Quick. Intra-frame and interframe. Intra means within, so JPEGs are all within. All the compression is done within. So if I'm a JPEG picture, we compress with all of what's inside my frame. Inter means amongst a group, so we compress amongst a group of frames. So intra-compression is JPEG, chroma subsampling, which all happens within that frame. And then interframe compression, also called temporal compression across a timeline, is done with differences between frames. And that's what we do when we do P and B frames and all that kind of stuff. So intra within, simple JPEG compression, chroma subsampling, redundancy of macro blocks, which I won't get into, and then across a bunch of frames, it's intercompression. Difference between a codec and a container. A codec is the actual math to the codec is the actual way that we take the video and we shape it and form it. The container then tells players, tells projectors, tells the internet how to play me out. So again, it's like the clothes on the person. It's also the instructions that you get in your brain, so it's kind of like a bit of brain stuff, it's a bit of clothing, it's a bit of everything that makes us humans more than just flesh and blood. Why do videographers prefer lossy compression to lossless? Well, lossless just gives you, the files are just too big with lossless files, so we don't use them. We always use lossy. Linux and Unix, forget about it. Don't worry about it. Interframe and interframe. That's it. Oh, great. So we'll finish with that. Quick thing about the taxonomy of moving images, because I'm now at 9 minutes. You can read all the codec compression stuff. The taxonomy of moving images is really simple. we have two HD formats, 1920 by 1080, 1280 by 720. Those formats are in your camera. We have one other format which is called standard definition. It's the old school format that is on old TVs, and it's more boxy and square, and it's 640 by 480, though your camera calls it 640 by 424 or something, but don't worry about that. The point being, one HD format, one standard definition format, three different size frames. And those three different size frames look like this. Erase this. This is important. So our first big frame, big HD, 1920, pixels across the bottom by 1080, scan lines up the top. Our smaller HD, which fits in here picture in picture, 1280 across the bottom, 720 lines on top. Out of this we get what's called our aspect ratio. The aspect ratio is the width divided by the height, and 1080. And in the case of our wonderful HD, it's 1.78. Okay? Standard definition has an aspect ratio of 4 to 3, or 1.33, 4 units wide to 3 units high. And it looks like this inside of an HD TV. It's small. So this would be 640 by 480. But when this signal is put on an HD TV, like it often is, what they do is they just blow it up. So when it becomes blown up, we get this in the HD TV with these black bars, which are called pillar boxing. Pillar as in pillars, pillar boxing. So when you watch TV, you're going to see, not this mess, but you're going to see either full HD, you're going to see pillar boxed, black bars on either side, or you're going to see picture-in-picture, which will be the smaller HD put inside with black all around like that. And that is a complete and utter mess. Anyway, shout out to Luis and JP, Margaret, other folks, Myrna, for doing assignment 2 and doing a fabulous job. I'm going to do one more video because this is 12 minutes long, getting boring as hell. And it's going to be on exporting your stuff from Premiere. So have fun studying this weekend. Good luck. May the force be with you.